Imagine you live in an apartment, right? You've got like 5 roommates,
Oh.
and you all share just one communal fridge.
Oh, man. Yeah. A classic setup for disaster.
Exactly. I mean, everyone implicitly agrees to pitch in, buy groceries, share the food. But what happens if one roommate decides to just act entirely in their own self-interest?
They just start, hoarding all the good stuff.
Right. They start eating the expensive cheeses, drinking the milk, and they never actually pay for or restock anything. I mean, they benefit massively in the short term.
But eventually the fridge just runs completely empty.
And everyone starves. So it's incredibly annoying on an apartment scale, but what if that communal fridge was the entire Earth?
And the groceries are, our oceans, our atmosphere, our forests.
Exactly. So welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive crafted specifically for you. Our mission today is to conquer a massive stack of AP environmental science notes.
Yeah, we are really getting into it today.
We absolutely are. Specifically, we're focusing on the Vocab for the year and the Journey AP's key concepts and vocab documents. Because let's face it,
Friday, May 15th, 2026.
is approaching super fast.
It really is.
And you need to be completely prepped for that AP test. But we're not just going to run through a boring glossary of terms. We're going to build the engine of the Earth from the ground up, piece by piece.
Right, so you can see exactly how it runs and how we actually keep it from breaking down. Because true environmental science isn't just memorizing definitions.
No, definitely not.
It's about seeing the patterns, the connections in the real world. To understand how that planetary engine operates, we first have to establish the playing field.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Well, the environment is just the sum of all the conditions surrounding us that influence life. So environmental science, then, is the study of the interactions between the physical, chemical, and biological components within those surroundings.
I mean, it's basically the observation of how human systems and natural systems constantly collide.
Exactly. And when you look at how scientists actually observe those collisions, it always starts with a hypothesis.
Right, usually formulated as an if-then statement, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if we change this specific variable, then this specific outcome will occur. It's an assumption proposed purely for the sake of argument, so it can be rigorously tested.
And to test it, scientists pull in 2 completely different types of data. Like, let's say you want to know what the weather's doing outside.
Okay.
If you pull out your phone, open a weather app, and see that it's exactly 82.5 degrees Fahrenheit with 60% humidity, you are looking at quantitative data.
Right, because it's highly measurable.
Exactly. It relies on exact numbers and instruments like thermometers or graduated cylinders. But if you just stick your hand out the window and feel that it's hot and sticky.
That is qualitative data. You're using your senses to observe the conditions without assigning, strict numerical values.
Right. And both qualitative and quantitative data are necessary to understand systems.
Yeah, and a system is really just a set of interacting components that influence each other by exchanging energy or materials.
So if the Earth is a giant system, I am trying to figure out which category it falls into. Is it considered open or closed?
Well, that's the interesting part. It's actually a brilliant hybrid of the two.
Wait, really? How does that work?
So, for matter, Earth is practically a closed system. I mean, we don't get fresh deliveries of water or carbon from outer space.
Oh, right. We're just trapped in a giant bubble.
Exactly. Every atom we have must be constantly recycled. But for energy, Earth is an entirely open system. We receive this massive, constant influx of solar radiation from the sun.
And we continually radiate heat back out into space.
Right. A perfect miniature way to visualize this dynamic is that classic eco-column classroom experiment.
Oh, yeah. With the stacked plastic bottle.
That's the one. You create interconnected chambers with soil, water, plants, maybe a small fish, and you seal it up. It becomes a self-contained, closed system for matter.
So you can watch the water cycle through the dirt and the plant life qualitatively with your eyes.
Or quantitatively by measuring changes in the water chemistry. All while sunlight, the open energy, drives the entire process from the outside.
Okay, let's unpack this. If the Earth is driven by that open flow of solar energy, we need to look at how that energy actually does work, because energy is fundamentally defined as the ability to do work.
Yeah, and it seems like the heaviest work being done is moving all that trapped matter around through the biogeochemical cycle.
The biogeochemical cycles, those are the literal gears of the planetary engine, right?
Absolutely. They incorporate biology, geology, and chemistry to constantly recycle our limited matter, like the carbon cycle, for instance.
Which acts as the Earth's thermostat.
Yes, regulating temperature by moving carbon from the atmosphere into plants, down into fossil fuels, and back again. Then you have the nitrogen cycle.
Right, taking inert nitrogen gas from the air.
And relying on specialized bacteria to, fix it into a usable form so plants and animals can build DNA and proteins.
And what's wild is the phosphorus cycle operates without an atmospheric component at all. It just slowly weathers out of rocks.
Exactly, providing essential nutrients for cell development. And tying it all together is the water cycle, the universal solvent that physically transports all these elements across the globe.
And all of that recycling takes place within the biosphere, which is the entire zone of life on Earth.
Right, and we mentally chop the biosphere down into biomes. Major regional areas characterized by their climate, like a tropical rainforest or, a tundra.
And if you zoom in even further, you find ecosystems, locations where living and non-living parts interact.
Yeah, so when you look at an ecosystem, you're watching a massive collision between the abiotic world.
The non-living parts like sunlight, soil, rainfall.
Exactly, the abiotic world and the biotic world, which is all the living organisms, and the exact point where the abiotic sunlight hits a biotic plant leaf.
That's photosynthesis, the true starting point for almost all life.
Right. The mechanism is just so elegant. Plants take 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water, combine them using light energy, and produce 1 molecule of glucose.
That's C6H12O6, right? Plus 6 molecules of oxygen.
You got it. They capture solar energy and turn it into physical biomass. And the necessary reverse of this is respiration.
Where organisms consume that glucose and oxygen to release energy for survival, returning water and CO2 back to the environment.
Exactly.
Which brings us to a pair of acronyms that constantly trip people up. GPP and NPP.
Oh, yeah. Gross primary productivity and net primary productivity.
So a financial analogy works perfectly here. Think of GPP, your gross primary productivity, as your gross salary.
Right, the big number at the top of your paycheck.
Exactly. It's the absolute total amount of solar energy that producers convert into chemical energy over a given time. But you never actually get to keep your gross salary.
Sadly, no. The government takes out taxes.
Right, and you have to pay for rent and groceries. Well, for a plant, those living expenses are aerobic respiration.
They have to burn some of the energy they just captured simply to stay alive, grow leaves, and reproduce.
So what's left over, your actual take-home pay that goes straight into your savings account, is the NPP, the net primary productivity.
And what's fascinating here is that this ecological take-home pay, the NPP, is the only energy available to be passed on to everything else in the ecosystem.
Because the herbivores can't eat the energy the plant already burned for its own survival.
Right. They can only eat the surplus. Therefore, NPP strictly dictates the biomass of an ecosystem, basically the total mass of all living organisms in a given area.
And the abiotic factors are entirely in control of this, aren't they?
Completely. If you have an environment with abundant rainfall, rich soil, and intense direct sunlight, you generate massive GPP.
So even thanks to the plants pay their respiration taxes, the resulting NPP is huge.
Exactly, supporting an enormous biomass like you see in the Amazon. Contrast that with a desert where harsh abiotic factors mean the starting GPP is tiny.
The take-home pay is almost nothing.
Yeah, and the resulting biomass is incredibly sparse.
So that net energy is the currency supporting the entire web of life. Let's look at who is spending it. We categorize life into species, right?
Yeah, organisms that can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. We've identified roughly 2 million species on Earth.
Though millions more remain undiscovered. And all these species collectively represent biodiversity, which is split into 3 crucial levels.
Right. Genetic diversity within a single species, species diversity within a given ecosystem, and ecosystem diversity across the entire biosphere.
The variety across those 3 levels determines the resilience of life on Earth.
But let me push back on that resilience for a moment.
Okay, go for it.
If there are over 2 million identified species, and millions more we haven't even named yet, why is it such a big deal if we lose a few dozen, or even a few hundred? Isn't nature resilient?
I mean, it's a fair question, but to understand why losing even a single species can be catastrophic, we have to look at how energy moves between them. Let's compare a food chain to a food web.
Okay, so a food chain maps a single linear path of energy. Right. Grass grows, A grasshopper eats the grass, a mouse eats the grasshopper, an owl eats the mouse.
They occupy distinct trophic levels, which are the hierarchical steps in the chain, starting with the producers at level 1.
Exactly. But the critical limiting factor there is the 10% rule.
Right. Only about 10% of the energy from one trophic level actually makes it up to the next level.
Because the other 90% is lost to the environment, primarily as heat from metabolic processes. So the owl at the top gets a tiny fraction of the original solar energy.
So because of that massive energy loss, food chains are inherently fragile.
Super fragile. If a disease wipes out the mice in that simple chain, the owl starves and the grasshoppers overpopulate.
Which is why nature rarely operates in a straight line.
Right, it utilizes a food web, a complex interconnected network where many predators eat multiple types of prey.
So a web can absorb the loss of a single link.
Usually, yes. But if you remove a keystone species, the entire structural integrity of the ecosystem collapses.
Wait, so what makes a species a keystone? Are they just, like, the most abundant animals in the ecosystem?
Actually, it's the opposite. A keystone species has a disproportionately massive impact on its environment relative to its usually small population size.
Oh, wow. Do you have an example?
Yeah, consider the sea otter in the kelp forests of the Pacific. Sea otters eat sea urchins.
Okay.
If you remove the otters, the sea urchin population rapidly explodes, and those unchecked urchins will completely devour the kelp at the base of the ocean floor.
And the kelp is the foundational habitat for fish, crabs, and, like, dozens of other species.
Exactly. So without the otters regulating the urchins, the entire forest is destroyed, leaving a barren underwater wasteland.
So often an apex predator, the animal at the very top of the food web with no natural predators, serves this keystone role.
Right. And species don't just exist alongside each other, they're locked in coevolution.
Meaning a change in the gene pool of one species forces a change in another, like a cheetah getting faster to catch a faster gazelle.
Exactly. Ecosystem and genetic diversity are not just, aesthetic bonuses. They provide the biological insurance policy that prevents the whole engine from grinding to a halt.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because now we have to talk about us. We've mapped this delicate balance, but now we must examine the anthropogenic disruptions.
And anthropogenic simply means human-caused.
Right. And we measure the scale of these human-caused disruptions using environmental indicators. Basically, the warning lights flashing on the dashboard of the planet.
Exactly. Ecologists focus on the big 5 environmental indicators: biological diversity, food production, average surface temperature and CO2 concentration, human population, and resource depletion.
So when biological diversity drops, we know our ecological insurance policy is failing.
Yeah. And when food production plateaus, we know we're exhausting the abiotic nutrients in our soil.
And then when we look at the atmosphere, that critical layer of gases surrounding the Earth, we see CO2 concentration rising.
Because carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas produced by burning fossil fuels, it acts like a thermal blanket, trapping solar heat and driving up the average surface temperature.
Add in exponential human population growth, which multiplies the demand for everything, and you get rapid resource depletion.
And that resource depletion hits our biosphere hard, which brings us to the acronym HIPPO.
HIPPO, the definitive list of anthropogenic threats to biodiversity. Let's break it down.
Sure. So H is for habitat destruction. When we pave over a forest, we fragment the landscape, isolating species.
So they can no longer interbreed. And then I is for invasive species.
Right.
Like the American bullfrog. That is a perfect mechanism for the I in HIPPO. You introduce a massive frog to a new ecosystem where it evolved with 0 natural predators.
And it operates completely outside the established food web.
Exactly. So it aggressively outcompetes native species like the foothill yellow-legged frog, driving them toward extinction. The local environment has no biological defense against it.
It's devastating. Moving through the rest of APPO, the first P is for population growth, which mathematically scales up every other threat.
And the second P is pollution.
Right, where we inject toxic chemicals that poison the biogeochemical cycles we talked about earlier.
And finally, the O stands for overharvesting, directly removing biomass from the environment faster than it can reproduce.
Which pulls us right back to our original apartment fridge analogy.
Yes. This is the tragedy of the commons. Whenever you have an open, shared resource like an ocean full of fish, a communal pasture, or breathable air,
individuals acting rationally in their own short-term self-interest will eventually deplete that resource,
ruining it for the collective, like a factory owner dumping pollution into the river because it saves them money today.
But eventually the entire town's water supply is poisoned. We overharvest our forests and overfish our oceans because of this exact mechanism.
And the tragedy of the commons is the direct result of our ecological footprint exceeding our limits, right?
Yes. The ecological footprint is the total measure of human demand on Earth's natural capital. It's how much land and water area a population requires to produce what it consumes and absorb its wastes.
And there is a hard limit to that footprint, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That limit is the carrying capacity. It's the maximum population a specific regional environment can support indefinitely without degrading the underlying systems.
So when our ecological footprint pushes us past the carrying capacity, the resources crash. The big five indicators light up, biodiversity drops.
And the closed matter system of the Earth struggles to recycle what is left.
So what does this all mean? We know the mechanism of the tragedy of the commons. We see the warning lights. How do we apply this knowledge to correct course without completely abandoning modern civilization?
The solution lies in sustainability. Being environmentally sustainable means engaging in practices that meet our current human needs without compromising future generations.
Basically, staying strictly under the carrying capacity. But there's massive friction here because we also prioritize economic development, right?
Oh, for sure. We want to improve the well-being and quality of life across the globe.
And that requires creating jobs, building infrastructure, utilizing resources. So can we actually develop economically while remaining environmentally sustainable?
They aren't mutually exclusive, but achieving both requires treating the global environment as a managed system rather than a free-for-all.
It requires multilateral cooperation.
Exactly. Look at CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. It's a multilateral treaty drafted back in 1975 to ensure international trade doesn't threaten the survival of wild plants and animals.
So it creates global legal boundaries.
Right. It proves that anthropogenic action can actually be a stabilizing force to protect biodiversity rather than just destroying it.
And as we talk about managing land and resources sustainably, I want to drop a vital piece of quantitative trivia you will absolutely need for the exam.
Oh, this is a good one.
It's a strict land measurement conversion. 1 acre equals exactly 2.471 hectares. I'll say it again. 1 acre equals 2.471 hectares.
It's so important when you're calculating ecological footprints or analyzing development zones, knowing that conversion is essential for translating local data into global metric impact.
And mastering those quantitative measurements while understanding the qualitative mechanisms is exactly what demonstrates deep comprehension on the test. Look at the sheer scale of what we've mapped out today.
You really covered a lot of ground.
We didn't just rattle off definitions, we built the system. We tracked the sun's open energy flowing into our closed matter system.
We watched that energy drive the biogeochemical cycles and power photosynthesis.
We calculated the gross and net primary productivity, realizing that the ecological take-home pay is what builds the biomass for those intricate food webs.
We explored how a keystone species, like the sea otter, prevents the whole trophic pyramid from collapsing.
And we confronted our own anthropogenic impacts, from greenhouse gases to the big five indicators. We unpacked HIPPO, identified the tragedy of the commons, and looked at sustainable solutions like CITES.
You now understand the causality. You can see how changing a single variable at the bottom of the food web ripples all the way to the top.
Friday, May 15th, 2026.
Is approaching fast. But when you sit down with that test booklet, you aren't going to be intimidated by a list of disconnected terms. You're going to see the living, breathing engine of the earth. You are fully equipped to crush this.
Absolutely. And to cement everything we've discussed, I encourage you to do a simple exercise. Next time you step outside your door, look around your own neighborhood. Try to identify the flow of open energy interacting with the closed cycle of matter in a garden or a park.
Look at the biotic and abiotic factors colliding.
Exactly. And ask yourself, are the systems you are looking at currently in a sustainable balance? Or, if you trace the resource use back far enough, are you witnessing a slow tragedy of the commons playing out right on your own street?
That is definitely something to think about every time you look at the world around you. Good luck on the exam. You've got this.